I'm going to be showing you how to build a low profile aluminium deck that goes straight on top of the pavers. The advantages of this are that I don't have to pull up any of the pavers, and the finished deck height will be level with the floor height of the house. The other advantages are that the aluminium won't rot like wood being close to the ground and will last a lot longer. Let's get into it. Now, because my decking frame is so low to the ground, to make it easier, I'm going to build sections of the frame first on the ground, and then I'm going to go along and put the pedestals on afterwards to bring it to the height that I want. So for the first part of the frame, I made sure I got it as square as possible because that's where the rest of the deck is going to run off. I've put two parallel lengths next to each other to support the width of my decking board, and I worked it out by simply laying the decking board on top. I left enough space for the border to sit on. The long lengths are going to run this way. There's also enough meat on this frame for these longer boards to sit on there as well. Now, because we're using aluminium frame, you want to get yourself a good quality aluminium saw blade. You also want to be extra safe when you're cutting because obviously the aluminium behaves differently to timber if you're used to timber, and it can grab and flick off the saw. Especially when you're cutting smaller pieces, make sure that you clamp it down and hold it in place. This is where I'm at so far. I've got my joists running this way and it's picture framed within the walls. So the deck is floating. There's only about a 5mm gap between my walls and my frame. So I've set myself up a little bench here. I've got my angle brackets in a box and my screws in a box, and I normally fix the brackets while I'm up here, screw them on, and then I can go ahead and screw them in place. The boxes kept falling off, so I just stuck a screw in them. When you're putting your brackets in, as recommended by Outdoor, first you slip this part in, and you want to sit the bracket just flush with the end of the piece that you've cut. When you go to put the other joist on, it sits in there, and when it screws up, it clamps it nice and tight. So in order to build the frame around these brick pillars here, I'm going to put a piece in here, and then I'm going to run my remaining joists off here. One of the great things about this system is you can slot the pieces in place, and then you're able to slide them back and forth until you get them to a place where you want them. Then you can fix them off. Now I can go along and join my two joists for the breaker board in this section. Afterwards I'll come along and I'll frame the pillar even more so the boards sit nicely around it. I've measured the distance that my breaker board will be from the end of the frame, splitting the area into 3. Breaker board's going to sit on the frame like that, and then these boards are going to be running into it. I have my spacer here that's cut at 450. With that, it's much easier for me to go along the joists and mark where my 450 centers are. So I put it at my 450 mark, go along, line it up, 450 centers all the way along here. Once I have my brackets on, I put the joist in on an angle, and then I can just slide it into the end joist. What I do is I line up my 450 center mark with the center line of the joist. Do that on both sides and it ends up perfectly square and straight. So here I've measured and marked the center of my frame so that I can line up my bearer straight through the middle, and I've marked that on both of these joists. The pedestals are height adjustable. All you do is you twist the center, change the height, line up nice. The way I'm building the frame is in sections, and a section consists of a joist running this way into the end joist, I skip 2 joists in the middle. Then I run another full joist into the end joist on this side. Next, I run a bearer, an integrated bearer, running this way. Then I add the smaller length joists in here and also in here. Obviously, I'll have to put another integrated bearer running this way for the joist to run into. Then I'll box this pillar in. Now I'm just going to go along and finish the last section. Let's do it. I'm up to framing around the pillars, which I saved to last. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run another joist this way and then fill it in either side of the pillar, the joist going this way. That way the board will have something to sit onto and screw to for support. Now where the pedestals maxed out at their lowest, I switched to these rubber packers and stacked them up to get the deck level with the house. And here's how the frame turned out.